Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Iowa State Cyclones Live here on the Voice of College Football Network. I'm host Levi Stevenson, managing editor over at Wide Right Natty Light. And since we last talked last Tuesday, things have changed, to say the least. As of last Tuesday, we were talking about the end of the season, talking about the win at Oklahoma State, talking about potentially a bowl berth. We're talking about transfer portal priorities and all this, and life's all fine and dandy. And then Thursday and Friday happened. And before you knew it, Matt Campbell is off to Penn State to be the head coach over there. And not 15 minutes later, Jimmy Rogers is introduced as the new head coach of Iowa State football. I would have done a show on here on Friday or Saturday or something like that, but I ended up we ended up doing a stream for Wide Right on Friday night, and it did pretty good numbers. I think at one point I saw the live stream for our Wide Right live stream with me, Matthias, and Dylan, and Austin. I think topped out at like 16,000 concurrent viewers on Twitter, which is a pretty good number for us. Anyways. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I don't really want to dive too much into the Matt Campbell stuff, just because I think we're all kind of moved on by now. Like, maybe some people aren't. And it still is kind of like a processing what's all going. A situation where I think a lot of people are still trying to just processing what all happened, and they're just kind of trying to get used to the idea that Matt Campbell's not our head coach anymore, and it just is what it is. He's over there in Happy Valley and going to coach Penn State. So, I mean, it kind of is what it is there. And frankly, Friday was one of the craziest days of my Cyclone fandom, at least modern era. I mean, just tons of information going each way. And it was just kind of an unreal day, because there was it seemed like there was rumors popping up every half hour was this new rumor. It's like, oh, this person's in, this brand new donor's in. We're obviously I would say found a mega donor. Yeah. The hold the line thing. Honestly, even if it ended up being in hindsight, it ended up being just a giant nothing. We were not holding anything. Matt Campbell had made up his mind on Thursday. It ended up being nothing, but I will profess to having an absolutely glorious time holding the line with all my fellow Cyclone fans, even if the line we were holding was absolutely nothing. That was the Harry Stein stuff was by far the most interesting part of all this. For anybody that doesn't know, Harry Stein is by far the richest person in Iowa, owns Stein Seed, which a lot of people haven't heard of because they just kind of do their own. They are one of the world's largest producer of genetically modified soybeans. And they're a massive seed company that almost nobody knows about because they don't I don't really think they do much as far as public advertising. They're not Pioneer or Latham or whatever, or Kent or any of these other brands, Monsanto, or what used to be Monsanto, Bayer, any of those. You don't really see, you don't see Stein advertise seed as much as the other one. But anyways, Harry Stein is the richest person in Iowa. He's roughly worth about $10 billion. He's an Iowa State grad. Up to this point has been a fairly quiet donor, and he has mostly donated to the university and not to athletics. Well, naturally, when it came up on Friday, naturally Iowa State fans have been trying to wonder if we can ever get Harry Stein to jump in and really go in and be our mega donor and be our Cody Campbell, basically. He has the money to do it, but out of nowhere on Friday, someone decided to write some fan fiction that Harry Stein was suddenly getting involved. I think everybody heard. I think everybody heard something a little bit different, but the gist of what I had heard was that Harry Stein was getting ready to fund most or all of Iowa State's revenue sharing obligation, which would then, allow them to go pretty significantly far over the cap in their NIL and revenue sharing spending, um, which Harry Stein could probably afford to do. That would be a massive commitment to make just kind of on a whim. And turns out it was completely fan fiction. That was kind of a funny little saga because I mean, apparently we weren't the only ones that heard about it because, there were people on Twitter saying like buy more seed and all this. It was wild, man. That whole situation was fucking crazy. But in the end, Matt obviously left. But the like I said, I don't want to dive too far into it because I was mad about it over the weekend, and I'm past it now, and even in and now that I've had a chance to kind of reflect on it, I think you know knowing what like I do know, which is not like a lot more than anybody else really. Um, I've come around to the idea that Jamie probably did the best he could with the given situation. Maybe, um, uh, you know, argue what you want about announcing the coach while Matt Campbell's meeting with the players. From what I understand, is that has gone over quite poorly. That went over quite poorly with the team. Hopefully, hopefully the players understand that that was not Jimmy's fault. That was just either Jamie or the athletic department or whatever. Someone made a mistake there and said they should have waited till after the meeting or waited till Saturday morning or something like that. Whatever it is. Either way, yeah, I don't want to get too far into like could Iowa State have kept Matt Campbell because I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I mean I don't know enough detail about anything. I don't know the behind the scenes stuff required to even dig into that. But you know, as far as the Jimmy Rogers stuff goes, from everything that I heard from Jimmy Pollard, from what I heard from Jimmy on during his press conference yesterday, he seems to be he seems to be a really good fit. He's a midway. He was originally from Arizona, Chandler, Arizona, but played his ball up at South Dakota State. He was a walk on up there. Actually played against Iowa State in like 2008 or 2009. I saw a clip earlier today. So he actually made a tackle on Alexander Robinson. Funny enough. Then he was an assistant at South Dakota State for a while. Then was their head coach when they won national title as an assistant and as a head coach, and then went to Washington State for a year. I think he said himself he wasn't intending there to be only a year, but he and Jamie had a previous relationship, and where Jimmy had expressed interest in the job, not really dissimilar from the Matt Campbell story. Where the famous Matt Campbell story was when he was here, when he was at Toledo, came to Iowa State, and then he was like, "Oh man, this place is incredible. I want to coach here someday." Whatever, and obviously, you know, the rest is history. Um, it's a similar-ish story in that Jimmy met Jamie and said like, "Hey, how do I get the Iowa State gigs?" And at least as Jamie tells it, Jimmy asks like, "How do you get the how can I get the Iowa State gig someday or whatever?" And however that else went from there. But eventually it opened up. Jamie called him and said, "Would you accept the job if I offered it to you?" And here we are. But I tell you what, though, like listening to his press conference yesterday, the guy's relatable. He's honest. I think it seems to me as though he's got the right mentality for this. It's kind of funny. He made a comment about his RBF, his resting bitch face. At the beginning of things, like I just look like this. I'm not always angry, which I can relate to as someone that is also afflicted with a at least a minimum a mild case of RBF. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that a little bit of candor. I also another thing I appreciated that he did that he really didn't have to. I don't think I don't think it was I don't know if it was a calculated move or was just kind of like he's good at this and he knows what he's doing, but he was very careful to and very he made a point to over and over um bring up Matt Campbell and his legacy and how and being excited about building on what Matt Campbell built here. I mean, he knows that like that Cyclone fans are, were slash are, you know, upset about it, hurt by it a little bit, or just, the wound is still fresh, it's still tender. And he didn't want to come in here, I mean, it would have been a bad move to do it, but like he obviously he came in a point, of trying to not sound as though like, oh, he's gone. We don't forget. We're gonna forget. Fuck that guy, type of thing, or whatever. Like he didn't take that road. He took the road on. He took the road of, I really appreciate everything Matt Campbell did here. I'm excited to build on what he accomplished in Ames, and I try to learn as much as I can from him from a distance, type of thing. So it was paying homage to, the former coach, and, trying to say like, hey, I get it that, losing a beloved coach is hard, and but I'm not here to replace him necessarily. I'm not, or well, I'm not here to try to like make you forget about him, type of thing. But like, it's more just like, I'm here to continue to build on what was happening. Not telling you to just forget about that part or to tarnish Campbell in any way. Just, he's going to be his own thing. And unfortunately, because he is following Matt Campbell, he's going to be compared to Matt Campbell. That's just how this works. He's going to get compared to Matt Campbell. But I do hope people I do hope people give him a chance, which is funny because Mysterious Stranger says, I'm probably done with season tickets for Iowa State football at this point, but I hope he has success. I respect your decision, Mysterious Stranger. What I would tell you, I mean, if it's a financial thing for you, like you just like money, like it just financially isn't worth it for you. Like, I get it, do what you got to do. But if it's truly just like, I'm not as excited for Jimmy Rogers as I was for Matt Campbell, type of thing, I give Jimmy a season. Like, give Jimmy Rogers a season or two, and then if if it's bad, drop off, do what you got to do or whatever. But if it's truly just because of the coaching change that you want to get rid of your season tickets, I would implore you to give him a chance, because I really do think that Jimmy seems like, you know I mean, it's hard to know for sure, but he seems like one of the best hires Iowa State could have made. Maybe the best one, at least one of the best hires they could have made. I think his mindset is not much different from Matt Campbell. He's a defensive guy, which we'll talk about at in a second here. A thing that he brought up as far as scheme goes, that he wants to go to a 4 down front, which is very interesting. But yeah, he's a hard nosed guy. He wants to run the football. He wants to do, he wants to play football a lot of the same way that Matt Campbell played football. So like, from a mentality and just an overall how the program feels and looks, I wouldn't like I would bet it's not a drastic shift in philosophy. Like, we're not suddenly going to be an up tempo air raid team or something. It's not going to be that way. And one of the ways, is that they hired an offensive coordinator today that I think is a home run hire as well. Jackson Johnson wants to know: is it true that Rodgers took the job as a solid for Campbell on account of whether he can fix the QB situation? Um, is it true that Rodgers took the as a solid, like Jamie Rodgers did it as a favor for Campbell? I guess I haven't heard that. I mean, it's not. I guess it's not impossible. I guess, but I haven't heard that. Like I It's possible that Matt Campbell, had something to say about the next coach, wherever. Like, I don't know. I don't know if he was given input, if he gave input. He was asked to give input. I don't know. I would kind of doubt it. Usually that's not something that's common. But I guess it's not impossible. I don't know the answer to that for sure. I think we're gonna be okay if we can keep some guys and bring contributors in. Um, yeah, Grant Weaver says, real excited about the Rodgers hire. Seems like a great hire, but it's always roll the dice. Absolutely. Um, Good teams last year against top teams. Defense will be good. Yeah, in general, yeah. So TJ Otzelberger was at South Dakota State at the same time as Jimmy Rodgers, and from it sounds like TJ, vouched for him basically, and told Jamie's like, yeah, if you can get him, go get him, type of thing. So if TJ Otzelberger is a fan of Jimmy Rodgers, I'm a fan of Jimmy Rodgers. But I think that will help, though, is that with the similar mindset and the similar mentality of the program, just aesthetically, I think things will look fairly similar. And actually, I mean, we can kind of morph into that a little bit. Um,